Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Kiddushin Daf Lamed Aleph. We're starting about 10 lines down. This Gemara has a lot of agadata coupled with a lot of the halachos of kibbud avayim that we started yesterday. 10 lines down on Lamed Aleph, the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yitzchak, Kol over avera b'seiser. If a person does an avera in private, that's its own type of evil. That's ki'ilu dochek raglei ashchina. That's as if you've cut the feet out from under HaKadosh Baruch Hu, kaviyachol shenemar, Komar Hashem, Hashemayim kisi, ve'aretz hadom ragloi, that my feet are down on earth. And when you do something in private, it's as if you're kind of breaking the knees, cutting the feet of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, asher lo la'adam she'halach ba'arba amos b'koma zekufa. A person's not allowed to walk with their head held high, even though we raise our children to say, hold your head high. That is an emotional space. Here we should not walk in a way where it carries what appears to be gaiva. That we need to make sure that there's enough space for HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world. Rav Huna, the son of Rabbi Yeshua, would not walk. He would not move Daled Amos without covering his head. Omar, he argued, Shechina lamala mi roshi. The Shechina is above my head, and because that's true, I always want to be covered. Shah ben Almona Achas es Rabbi Eliezer. The son of an Almona asked Rabbi Eliezer, Abba Omer Hashkini Mayim. If my father says, give me a drink, V'im Omer Hishkini Mayim. My mother says, give me a drink. Eza mehem kodem. Amar lei. Rabbi Eliezer says, Hanach kavod imcha v'asei kavod avicha. You should leave your mother's kavod, meaning don't give her the drink, v'asei kavod avicha, and give your father the drink. And the Gemara gives a halachic svara as to why this is the case. A third of the way down, almost halfway down on Lamed Aleph from Aleph, the child has a direct obligation in tzivui from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he has to take care of his father, and a woman also has as part of her obligations to also be of service to her husband, and therefore, because both of them have an obligation to serve the husband/father, therefore, if a mother and father ask a child at the same moment to do a particular act on their behalf, the requirement of the child is to take care of the father's needs first. Ba'lifnei Rabbi Yoshua, Amar Lokach, the same exact question. This Ben Almona asked the same question to Rabbi Yoshua. He gave the same response, that the father should be tended to first. Amar Lo, Rabbi Niskarsha Mahu, what if the parents get divorced? So let's say you now have a divorced set of parents, but now the wife no longer has any obligations to the husband. If that's true, what then happens to the chiyuvim of that child? What is he then obligated to do? So to this, the Gemara says, Amar le mi bein risa einecha, I can tell from looking at your eyes that nikar sheben almana ata. I can tell that you're the son of an almana. I can tell that you've been very emotional. I can see that your eyes are strained from tears, from stress. I'll just go put water out in the basin. This was a turn of phrase back in the day. Rashi kind of lets us know what's going on over here. And Rashi basically says, Dibur Hamaskal Atelahem Mayim B'Safal V'Ka'akea Kir Kir Lahem Kemosh Mekarker in the Tarnagol. He made sounds at this guy like a Tarnagol would. Why? Vishalo Hayatzarech Lasos Hu Sha'alo Kemo Sha'alav Lasos. He didn't need to do it. He was asking as though he needed to do it, and he gave some kind of quirky answer to let the guy know, I know you've been through a lot. The Gemara says halfway down, Dorash Ula Rabba Apischa de Benisia. Ula Rabba, the great Ula, made a drasha on the doorstep of the house of the Nasi. My dechsiv yoducha Hashem kol malchei aretz kishamu imrei ficha. Why didn't it say Maimar picha lo ne'amar ela imrei ficha? So says the Gemara, B'shash amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when everybody heard the first of the 10 commandments and the second of Anochi and V'lo Yelecha, Amru umos olam, the nations of the world said L'chvod atzmo hu doresh. Look at the first one. Oh, I took the Yidden out. I'm in charge. The second one, you really shouldn't have any other gods. But then, as the 10 commandments went on, once somebody saw that one of the 10 commandments was to make sure that a child is respectful to his parents, then that then validated the first of the luchos and the second of the luchos. So when the goyim heard the first two, they thought that God had a little bit of an ego. When they finally heard then they realized that it was not, in fact, a HaKadosh Baruch Hu having an ego, and therefore they agreed even on the rishonos. Rava Amar Mehacha, Rava said that they found this out from somewhere else. Rosh Devarcha Emes. What does it mean that Rosh Devarcha Emes? Rosh Devarcha v'lo Sof Devarcha. Why does the pasuk say that only the beginning of your words are Emes and not the end? Elami Sof Devarecha Nikar Sherosh Devarecha Emes. from the ends of your words, namely from the Aseret Hadibros that speaks about Kibbud Avaim, that was a Gilui Milsa, that was Nikar Sherosh Devarcha Emes, that even the beginning parts of the Aseret Hadibros were also Emes. Bo Minei Rav Ula, Ad Hechen Kibbud Avaim. This is a very famous, well-known Gemara. Says the Gemara, what is the limits of Kibbud Avaim? Amar Lahem Tzeu Uruma Asa Ove Kochavim Echad BeAshkelon. There was a guy, a regular non-Jewish guy, really wasn't so regular, we'll see soon. Vidama ben Nisina Shemo, his name was Dama ben Nisina, and says the Gemara, Hamachas Bikshu Chachamim Prakmat Yubishishim Ribo Schar. The Chachamim went to go knock on Dama ben Nisina's door. They wanted to do some business with him. They sold precious stones. But the key to the lock, to the safe, was Munach Tachas Me Roshosav Shel Aviv Velotzier, and his father had the key under his pillow, and his father was sleeping. So if this were my child, I'd say, wake me up. But the Gemara seems to say that Dama ben Nesina was not willing to wake up his father.
It's such an obvious question. I believe somebody.
I'm sure. I didn't look.
Well, Goy doesn't have that aspect.
Doesn't matter. The point that David's asking a different question, which is every father would want, the question should be that this isn't a violation of Kibbud Avaim. Right. A father would want his son to wake him up. What seems from the Gemara, without any deeper analysis, is that you're just not allowed to wake up your parents without permission. That's what it seems like from the Gemara. Now, if you knew, Meirosh, your father said, if somebody knocks on the door, wake me, then you wake him. And if someone, because that's a tzivui from your parents also. So, basically, that's kind of how things work in the Gemara's land, and it seems to be that without any foreknowledge, you're not allowed to wake up your parent. V'lo tziaro, he did not wake up his father. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. This story is being repeated again, but with more color and more detail. Shalu es Rabbi Eliezer ad hechan kibbud avaim. How far are the limits of kibbud avaim? Amar lehem tzur umas so v'kochav mechad la'avi ba'ashkelon v'dama ben nesina shemo bikshim imenu chachamim avanim la'efod. Now we get more detail. We know that there's stones for the ephod b'shishim ribo schar, for 600,000 ribo of money. For Rav Kahana Masni b'shmonim ribo, it's 80 times 10,000. It's a lot of bank. That's a lot of money. And says the Gemara, the Shana Acheres, the next year, Nasan al Kadosh Baruch Hu scharo. The next year, Kadosh Baruch Hu gave schar to Dama ben Nesina. Shal nodel para aduma be'edro. It was born to him a red heifer, a para aduma. The Gemara elsewhere in Shas speaks about the levels and the standards of a red heifer. We're talking about really red all the way through. One hair that's not red. It's kimat impossible to find such an animal from what it seems. Nechnesu chachamim, so the chachamim heard about this. Everybody was talking, so they went over to Dama ben Nesina. And Amar Lahem, he said to them, Yodea ani bachem, I know you Jews. She'im ani mevakesh mikem kol mamon shev'olam. If I asked you for $1 billion, you'd figure it out. Atem nostanli. But I'm a good guy. Ella ein ani mevakesh mikem ella osa mamon sheifsadti b'shvil kvod Abba. The only money that I want to ask you for is the small 800,000 that I lost when I was being mechabed my father. Just like it's the case that someone who doesn't have a commandment to honor his father, namely Dama ben Nesina, namely a goy, if a goy who doesn't have the obligation to service his father, but when he does, he gets rewarded with the para aduma, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu siyata dishmaya, then mitzvah ve'oseh alachas kama v'kama. All the more so is that true for someone who's a yid, who does have a tzivui. And that brings us to a famous din in the Gemara, the Amar Rabbi Chanina, Gadol mitzvah ve'oseh, mimi she'eino mitzvah ve'oseh. Sometimes it's nice when my children show initiative to do something nice. That's beautiful. But if only they'd listen to me when I talk to them, So that's what the Gemara is saying, is that when the Kadosh Baruch Hu is mitzaveh us to do something and we do it, that's a greater level than coming up with our own chap of what we think is good. It's gadol mitzvah ve'oseh, mimi she'eino mitzvah ve'oseh. And as a little bit of a sidebar to this conversation is Rav Yosef. Amar Rav Yosef, who was blind, Meiresh, in the beginning, Hava Amina, I used to say, Manda Hava Amarli, halacha karabi, my Rav Yehuda. There's a mistake here. What's the mistake? It's not Rabbi Chanina in the beginning. What's Reish Yud?
Rav Arsko said Rabbi Yehuda.
Take a look at Rashi, about 12 lines from the bottom. I'll do Rabbi Yehuda. sumo patur in the mitzvahs will devolve power.
I missed that in my preparation. Thank you. So it says the Gemara, Man dehava amar li halacha Rabbi Yehuda to amar suma pater mina mitzvos avidna yom tov l'Rabbanon. It used to be that when I used to hear the shita Rabbi Yehuda that a suma is pater from mitzvos, I would make a yontif because I used to think that it was gadol mishe'ena mitzvah v'oseh. And deha lo mifkidna, I'm not commanded. V'ha avidna, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to. I'm blind, so I'm pater. So the halacha is that maybe the havamina was that I should be pater, but the fact that I'm doing it gives me a huge schar. But hashta d'shem isa laha d'amar Reb Chanina. Now that I heard about Reb Chanina's shita, the gadol mitzvah v'oseh yoser mimishena mitzvah v'oseh adarabba. Now that I know that being commanded and performing is better than not being commanded and performing, then the opposite is true. It's better that I should have not paskin like Rabbi Yehuda if I can control it, and therefore when I do the mitzvahs, I'm getting even more schar. Kiyasa Rav Dimi, more about the story about Dama ben Nesina. Rav Dimi, when he came from Eretz Yisrael, he said, "Pamachas haya levush sirkon shel zav." Dama ben Nesina was wearing a garment that had kind of like pieces of gold woven into it. By Yoshe ben Gedolei Rome. He was sitting among the greats of Rome. Uva Sa'imo, his mother walked up to him in front of all these people. She tore off the fancy garment, rosho, smacked him upside the head, and spat in his face, and he didn't do a thing, nothing. Says the Gemara, Tani Avimi Beredi Rabbi Abo, Yesh Machil La'aviv Pisione, V'tordo min ha'olam. There are people who feed their fathers fancy foods, but they do so with such attitude, with such disdain, and with such disgust that even though you're feeding a chashuv food, but lamaisa, you're treating your father poorly. There are some who have their fathers doing slave labor. They're working the machines. And here the Gemara points out, Rashi points out based on the Yerushalmi, that if let's say that somebody says, they'll say to my father, Dr. Karesh, I want you to go do X, and I know that doing X is harder than doing Y. So let him work with the Rechaim, which is I'll do the harder work. That's a gift. That's meviu l'chaya olam haba. If a child can do that for his parent, then he's doing a good thing. So what the Gemara is pointing out here is just because you see a child doing something doesn't mean it's all good. He also has to treat the person with respect. He has to treat his father respectfully. Amar Rabbi Abo kigon avimi beri kayim mitzvahs kibud. Avimi, my son, he fulfilled the mitzvah of kibud avayim. Why? What happened? What happened with Avimi? Chamisha b'nei samche havale Avimi b'chay aviv. 5 of his sons got smicha in the life of his father. Rabbi Abo, Kari Abo. When Rabbi Abo would come over, he would knock on the door. Rahit va'azil, his son would run to open the door. Pasach leva amar, in. Yes, he made his father feel excited that he was coming over by calling through the door. And that is the mitzvah of kibbud avayim. And he would do that ad hasam until he actually got there. Yom Achad, one day, Amar le ashkiyan maya. The father said, please get me a cup of water. Ad aisile, by the time the son got back to give his father a cup of water, namnein, the father fell asleep. So it says the Gemara, Gachin, he hovered over his father, koi ale ad itar, until the father woke up. And says the Gemara, right at that time, when he was waiting patiently for his father as he had fallen asleep, istaya milsa, and he had some siyata dishmaya, the darash avimi mizmor le'asaf. And Avimi was now able to understand the perek of mizmor le'asaf, which is perek ayin tes in Tehillim. He was struggling to understand it. He couldn't understand with any of the mefarshim. There was no Rashi back in the day. This is in the times of the Amoraim. He didn't know. And then he got siyata dishmaya and found out what it was. Which is adorable that we think we understand. When we learn Tehillim, we're like, I learned it with Rashi, But these great Amoraim didn't understand it. Even the Pshat and the Psukim is lost on us. Lamed Aleph Amid Beis, 10 lines down. Amar le Rav Yaakov bar Avuela Abaye, Kigon Ana, like myself, Ad Asinimi Bei Rav, I have a problem. He said, when I come back from yeshiva, Abba, my father is madili kasa. My father pours me a cup to drink. Ve'ima mazgali, my mother dilutes it. Hechi avid, what should I do? My parents are serving me. This is backwards. It's not the way things should be. Says the Gemara, Amar le me'imcha kabil. You should receive from your mother, meaning let your mother give you the drink. Me'avuch lo tekabil, but you should not from your father to kevin debar Torah hu chal shadaite, because he's a ben Torah, because he's learned. Chal shadaite, he's going to have a chalisha sadas, and serving you should not take his. Rabbi Tarfon havale ahi ima techol emas tehavas baya lemesak lepuria. Every time his mother needed to get into bed, gachin v'salikle, he would kneel down. She would climb on his back, and he would be the step stool. Techol emas tehava nachis, and whenever she would be going down, nachtas ilave, she would then climb down on his back. Also, he got to the base medrash and said, I'm a Gevaldik son. Look at me, I have footmarks on my back from the dust of my mother's shoe. Amar Leah, Adain lo higata lechatzi kibud, you're a slacker. You haven't done anything yet. You haven't even done half of what you need to be doing. Klum zarka arniki b'fanecha liyam v'lo yichlimta. Has she ever thrown 1,000 of your rubles in the water, and all of a sudden you're a perfectly patient son? Rav Yosef, ki hava shama kal kara de'ima, when Yosef heard his mother's footsteps, Amar, he said, Eku mekame shchina de Asya. I'm going to stand before the shchina that is coming in my direction. Amar Rav Yochanan, and this is a very, very complex line. Ashrei mi shalocheman. Blessed is the one who did not see their parents, because, as Rashi highlights over here, we're a little bit more than halfway down in the Rashi. Zibur maschal ashrei mi shalocheman she'efshar lekaim kvodam kechol hatzorech u'ne'enash alehem. It's very hard to serve one's parents. And Dad, I hope I'm doing a good job, but it's very hard to serve one's parents, and there's no way that you don't get punished in regards to the mitzvah of kibbud avay.
What is that word?
I did think about this quite a bit, and the only thing I could come up with is the word chama as son. I thought about this earlier today, but that's still dachuk a little bit. What does the art scroll define for cheman? Amar Rav Yochanan, Ashrei mi shelo cheman. Does anybody see that halfway down? Lamed Aleph on the base. I didn't look it up.
She like takes it for granted.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I don't know. I know. No, it's not an interruption. It's a fair question, and it should be my responsibility to translate. What?
Is that what you're talking about?
The word cheman. Ashrei mi shelo cheman. Okay, another time. Well,
happy is one who never saw his parents.
So same, yeah. Maybe I'm correct. I don't know.
You are correct.
I know. I'm just saying. I know. I'm just saying the connection to the word chama, which is being able to see.
Notice, since it is almost impossible to honor one parent properly, a child will inevitably be punished.
Right, but he doesn't define the word chama more than the fact that
it's an interesting word to use.
It's uncommon. Mishelo rasa, whatever. Rabbi Yochanan ki evraso imo mes aviv. When Ibarto Imo, when his mother got pregnant with him, with Rabbi Yochanan, his father died. Yilad Tomei So Imo, and then he had no parents. And these people had no parents because the parents died. So says the Gemara, wait 1 second. Now that we've been through just about half of Shas, I think we could finally say we've heard this about 50 times in Shas already about Abaye. Hahi Marbinte Havoy. The woman that raised Abaye was not the mother. The woman that raised Abaye was a caretaker. Ravasi Havale Hahi Ima Zakena. He had an older mother. Amrali Be'ina Tachshitin. She said, I need jewelry. Avadla. He got some silver, and he got a smelter, and he made the woman some jewelry. And then Be'ina Gavra. I need you to find me a husband. There was no dad in the picture. So he went to go look for her. Be'ina Gavra the Shapir Kavasach. I need a man who's as good looking as you are, my son, Rabbi Yochanan. And for whatever reason, because sometimes we could read this in two directions, the son read this as my mother is not well, and he felt that he was no longer able to take care of her. So what he did is, I guess he took care of her, whatever, in some way, put her in a home, whatever the case may be. Shavka, he left her. Va'aza la'aradi Yisrael, he made aliyah. Shama de ka'azla basrei. And then once he was in Eretz Yisrael, he got a message that his mother was coming to Eretz Yisrael. So Asa l'kami de Rav Yochanan, he walked over to Rav Yochanan. Amar le ma'ula teis me'aretz l'chutzlaretz. Am I allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael? Seemingly, he didn't say the reason why. He just asked Stam Shaila. So Amar le Aser, simple. Likras ima mahu, to go greet my mother. Does that change things? Does that change things? The mitzvah of kibbud avayim is a mitzvah d'oraisa. There are shitas about Yishuv Eretz Yisrael being a din d'oraisa, but it's a mitzvah d'oraisa to leave for an hour, for a week, for a month, whatever. So it says the Gemara, Amar le eini yodea. That's an unbelievable sentence. Rav Yochanan didn't know the answer to that. Israch, he waited a little bit. Israch Porta Hadar As, he asked the same question again. Then Rav Yochanan answered him. 4 lines before the wide lines, Lamed Aleph and the base. Amarle Asi, he says, Asi, Nisrates Latzeis, I see that you want to go, Hamakom Yachzir Chalashalom. Kadosh Baruch Hu should bet you that you should come back safely. Asa Lekamed Rabbi Lazar, he repeated this story. Rav Asi repeated this story to Rabbi Lazar. Amar Le, he said, oh my gosh, Chas v'shalom Dilman Mirtach Rasach, maybe you angered Rav Yochanan and he just gave you a dacha cancer. So Amar Le, he said, no, that's not correct. My Amar Lach, Amar Le, Hamakom Yachzir Chalashalom. He gave me a bracha that I should come back in peace. So Amar Le, he said to him, you're right. V'yimi said, the Rasach, had he been angry, Lo haba mivrach lach, he would never have given you such a bracha. Adahachi v'hachi, while all of this conversation was going on, a new piece of information, unfortunately, reached his ears. Shama le'arona dekasi. His mother, who was coming along, she had actually passed away. This is Ravasi's mother, and she was on her way in an aron, in a casket, to Eretz Yisrael. Omar iyade, had I known this, lo nafki, I would not have left Eretz Yisrael. So I don't know how we paskin in Shulchan Aruch, but if a person's living in Eretz Yisrael and their parent passes away outside of Eretz Yisrael, this Gemara doesn't seem to be such a fan. I have a feeling that's not.
She was headed to Eretz Yisrael.
Yes, but he wasn't even allowed. Oh, you're saying differently.
No, it's hang tight. It wasn't like she lived in Bavel and then he had to go for the funeral. But she was not there, so just.
That's a good argument. That is a good argument.
But he didn't know that until after the fact.
Which is why he went out. She would get unknown from seeing when she was alive. But once.
Yeah.
There's a deeper philosophical question. I forgot the name. Why could he think that the Rebbe would give him a short answer just because he was mad at him? He would give him an answer that wasn't so.
You give him the wrong answer of saying you can go even though it's lesser. Yeah.
That is an interesting.
Also true.
Piece.
True. Okay, Tanu Rabbanan, 2 lines into the wide lines. Mechabdo b'chayev u'mechabdo b'moso. A child is obligated to honor his father while he's alive and once he has passed. B'chayev ketzad. How does one honor his father while he's alive? Hanishma b'dvar aviv l'makom. If you know that your father's name is a very powerful name in a certain place, lo yomar, don't say shalchuni bishvil atzmi. They sent me as the delegation, or miharuni bishvil atzmi. Just move quickly for me. Pitruni bishvil atzmi. Let me go because I'm me. Ela kulhu bishvil abba. You go to your old stomping ground. You invoke the dad's name. Oh, I'm so and so's son. I'm sure you all know him. He's wonderful, and therefore you should. That's the right way to honor a father while he's alive. But moso ketzad, how would one honor a father when he's no longer alive? Says the Gemara, Haya Omer Dvar Shumua Mipiv. You should quote things in his name. Lo Yomar Kach Amar Abba. You should not say this is what my father said, which sounds reasonably respectful. Rather, Elakach Amar Abba Mari Hareni Kaparas Mishkavo. Says the Gemara that when one quotes his father after that father has passed away, he should say, this is what my father, my master said, Hareni kaparas mishkavo, I am a kapara for his mishkav. What does this mean? Rashi to the left, Dibur Hamaschil, Hareni kaparas mishkavo, alai yavo kol ra haroi lavo al nafsho. That's a son. Where he asks for the burdens that are currently plaguing his father's neshama, he asks for them to be transferred to him. And the Gemara adds over here, V'hani mili toch shnei masar chodesh. This only applies in the first 12 months after a father passes away. Mikan va'elach, Amar zichrono livracha l'chai olam haba. We've shortened it over the years to zichrono livracha, but really it should be zichrono livracha l'chai olam haba. Tanu Rabbanon, Chacham meshana shem avi v'shem rabo. When a Chacham is talking, we have to change his father's name and his Rebbe's name. Turgaman, however, when the translator is listening to the Chacham, then the Gemara says, Einu mishana lo shem avi v'lo shem rabo. So we don't understand the pronouns here of lo shem avi v'lo shem rabo. Avuha deman. Ilem avuha de Turgaman. If you want to say that the father of the Turgaman has a different rule than other fathers, Atu Turgaman la bar chiyuvu, just because the guy's a Turgaman doesn't mean the father gets respect. That doesn't make any sense. Ela amarava. Shem aviv shel chacham, shem rabo shel chacham. The Turgaman can say the chacham's father's name. He's just a mouthpiece. He's just an orator. Ki ha demar bar Ravashi, ki have a darish bepirka when he was teaching. Ihu amar, when Mar bar Ravashi would talk about his father, amar abamari. He would say my father, my master. Ve'amore, his amora would say amar Hachi Amar Ravashi. He would just say his father's name is Mar bar Ravashi. So the Turgaman could say Ravashi's name. But if I'm quoting, for example, I can't quote my father's name. But if you're speaking on my behalf, then you can quote my father's name. We'll stop right here at the 2 dots for Tanu Rabbanan. The next Gemara is also famous about the practical aspects of Kibbud Av V'Em. We'll pick up Emir Hashem tomorrow night with 1 blot. Friday morning, we have to find another time to sneak in 1 blot. I'll try to do as much as I can on tomorrow night because, oh gosh. I will figure it out. Wishing you all a beautiful night.